Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to Football Manager 2022. This is Youth Factory, and we are on episode number 3. It is the final match of the season, and we're in a difficult position here. We are last place in the league, and we are on the road at the team that is first place in the league. Now, the good news is there is literally nothing to play for. We are in the lowest tier, so there is no relegation from here, and we stand no chance of moving up or down at this point. Also, they've already secured the league title. They have wrapped up everything they need, and as they go ahead 1-0 here inside 20 minutes, it's all good. It's not a big deal. So we're just going to be wrapping up, getting through this one. The good news is that we actually did manage to get yet another point. So we have 5 points on the season, and we are still playing with our current ability 1 squad that we started the playthrough with. And so far, I've only had a major falling out with a single player. I have criticized their training. Now, of course, their training... Ooh, did you see that? We have the Flash. He just went a zillion miles an hour. That's the first time I've seen that glitch. We had a player who just zipped from completely off screen into a respectable position in about 1/10 of a second. Benson is hurt. Let's go ahead and get him out. And it's been all of them so far in this one, and that's no surprise as they're the best in the league. I was really surprised. By the way, the one win we have, it was at home against these guys, and they just made it 2, and deservedly so. They're going to enter the break very comfortable in this one. Okay, well, here's what's going to happen. I am going to wrap up this game, and then we'll get into some postseason just to check on this squad, see how they did. We still have not yet had a youth intake of any kind. Hopefully there actually is one coming. I assume it is, but I haven't even had a preview to one, and it's November. We started February. There's still a quarter of a year window in there where we should have some youth graduates coming up. Quick overview of the league. Final results. Fortuna Oslo, who we just got hammered by. It was 3-0 in the end. We had 0 shots at the end of this one. And that's still 3-0, right? We only lost 4-0 a single time all season. So we took a handful of 3-0 losses. We only scored 2 goals the entire season. So I think we gave up 26 in 14, which is less than 2 per match. Barely, but less than. That is pretty dang good considering how awful this team is in their actual attributes comparatively as a whole. Tactically, we stalled teams out. We stalled their offenses out. We held the ball. We kept it away from them quite a bit. And when we do start to bring some players in, I'm encouraged. I'm really encouraged by what they were able to pull off, and that we were only 11 points above, or below, that is, the bottom of the table. And really, it was only another 4 points further to here. It was only 6 points further to 3rd place in the league. Okay, that's only 14 matches played, right? Take it with a grain of salt, but it's encouraging. Let's hope we actually do get some sort of youth intake and that it's not going to be backed off by a year, which theoretically you could almost see that being reality. Starting a new club, just founding a new club. Why would I have youth players to be calling upon? Why wouldn't I only have 18? Or, why wouldn't it only be 2 or 3 players coming out of the pipeline? It's a little odd to me that you do have 15 players coming up that first year. That's an awful lot to have coming out of a youth system that didn't exist a year before. Let's get some of those final stats on the season and see just how bad this group was. And then let's get to that youth intake, whenever, wherever that is. All right, so here's that end of season review, the famous way to wrap up the season. I don't think we actually would have ever been vulnerable. I don't think we ever stood a chance of getting fired. For one thing, they were satisfied with the job I did. For another, they expected us to finish bottom of the league. Getting a win against the league winner, getting a couple of draws, albeit goalless. We had 3 shutouts this season. that is so hard to fathom that we managed to get 3 clean sheets. All of our moments to remember, of course, come from the biggest win, because, it was the only win. But a match to remember, that FC Oslo 0-0 draw, and the goal of the season coming in that win. We only scored 2 goals. They only had 2 to pick from. All right, let's start with current ability, the development of this group. Viengel and Vieten, the only players that developed at all to a current ability from 1 up to 2. Viengel, mostly it came about from him having literally terrible performances all season long. His average rating was a 6.28. So after each and every one of those abysmal performances, I was able to go in and give him a warning. And while he rebuffed it fairly often, I did, over the course of the season, get him 3 or 4 times, so almost half the time anyway, to accept and be more motivated. As a result, his determination went from a 1 to a 4. His work rate went from a 6 to a 10. And that is the primary development. Now, he had little ups and downs throughout the season, but you can see nothing was above a 6 at the start of the year. Stamina, strength, positioning, technique, long throws, first touch, all at 7s. He's not good, but maybe, just maybe, because I've never in 3 years doing this, and so far this year has rang true, so 3 for 3 at the moment. I've never had one of these initial current ability 1 players ever go beyond a small amount of development. I think the highest I've ever seen was a current ability of either a 6 or a 7 of any of these players after multiple seasons. They just don't develop. They never take. Even if they have good potential, they never take. And I think so much of it comes down to all the attributes being so ridiculously low that regardless of personality, regardless of facilities, regardless of the staff, there's just a minimalist attribute baseline that they don't see development. If I can get determination, if I can get that determination up to an 8, 10, 12, something like that over the next couple of seasons, maybe just maybe, you could be the first player to actually start growing and seeing progress and get to be something useful for us down the road. Problem though, the moment he gets relegated out of the first team, the tool that I use to criticize and force the determination and work rate upward, that tool goes away. But maybe we can throw him in the Unite teams and keep an eye on it, and if he continues to have poor performances there, maybe, just maybe, I can use that. I've never tried it in the youth ranks. I don't know if it even works there. Is it only senior team appearances? Maybe, maybe not. Next thing to check is the training ratings. I have 4 players that are inconsistently, a few of them very consistent, that have been doing fairly well with their training. Bendixen also has hovered above that 7, so there's been a decent number. And Viengel was somebody who was down in the low 5s. He's really picked it up now that his determination is a little bit higher. And that's that sign that I'm talking about. But oddly, these guys aren't developing even though they have good training ratings. But maybe that's coming down to they don't have the determination. It could, it's a combination of factors. It's not one attribute that bogs you down. In terms of XG, the entire squad never even got above a 1.0. Any single player, any individual player. Viengel, 0.61 for the whole season. Alba, 0.59 for the entirety of the season. That hurts that we couldn't even get a 1.0 XG. Our XG total here makes it quite clear that the 2 goals that we got on the entire season is pretty much right on par on what we should have had. Average rating, Papa ended up being the highest, and Sandberg, our 2 center mids. That was good for us. And then Deli, Ethom, who was the defensive mid. So you could see where our strength was. Tavitan was the bench guy who backed them up, but he did okay. Another midfielder. Westby was one of my surprises. And I couldn't believe that he has not developed, because he did okay. And that was a real weakness for us. He had lots of interceptions. He won headers. I mean, he performed relatively well, but he just didn't develop out of all of it. That's the unfortunate and shocking part there, that we just couldn't get him to come along, because he would certainly be a candidate of somebody who has punched above what would be expected, right? The center mids, we see how they performed and how that was good and how that came to be a fairly decent part to what we were putting together. He's not part of that. He's, outside of that group, and where we leaked a lot of goals. And when you're leaking goals and not scoring them yourself, it tends to be bad ratings for your defense. There's a quick look. There's plenty of other stats here, but they really don't matter with this group. That is how things turned out. It truly was awful. But considering how bad it could have been and how bad that opening season was, those last 2 years in the 10th tier in England, comparatively, this group was fantastic. Comparatively. Take it with a grain of salt. Okay, let's go find this youth intake. When and where is it? It's November. I started in February. It's somewhere ahead of us. It's the final few days of the year, and there's a few more things to check in on. First off, our club is member-owned, and we just had our very first election. Rossfall has won those elections. Whoever that is, Martin Rossfall, is the new chairperson. Here is their message. I want to thank you for your patience during this undoubtedly stressful time for everyone involved with the club. No plans to provide the club with any investment at this stage. That was what I was hoping for, was that maybe there was something. Club vision, expectations, stays the same. Okay, no change. No, there is a change. End of next season, we're still allowed to finish bottom of the league. Originally, they were hoping for promotion by the end of next season, and then when we reached the end of the season under the old chairperson, the old president said, try to finish above bottom. Now we're back to, it's okay. Now, it's the final few days of the year. We have not yet had a youth intake or any announcement of anything. I mean, when we go in the dev center and look at youth candidates, it's don't expect much from this youth intake. Now that it's been roughly a year, let's check in. Reputation? Yeah, still non-existent. Attributes? Have we made any progress? Coaching? Not at all. Zero change. Mental attributes, youngster knowledge went +1. People management, +1. I want to say it was a 7. And motivating has gone +2. So in roughly 1 year, that is the amount of progress that we have made on the job. It's not much, but of course I've only actually managed 4 games. We had a draw and 3 losses, but only gave up 5 goals in those 4. All things considered, that's not bad. And we went up against the number 1 team in the league, the number 2 team in the league, in a couple of those appearances. Our knowledge of Norway is growing. That's always going to be helpful, especially as I learn the language. That's going to be helpful down the road. So, it's all good. It's all good. We'll get there eventually, and I think once we do get a youth intake, that's when things are going to start going the right direction. And we've gone just a few days into the future. However, with the turn of the year, that $26,000 that we got in sponsorship money, it was collected on the 1st of January. So now we have a positive balance. It's not a great balance. It's $13,874, meaning we were almost $13,000 in debt. So that's a bad sign for the season to come. It's also a very small chunk of change, but a positive balance is still a totally different matter than a negative balance. And you can see as the season went on, we weren't losing that much. We were losing about $2,000 a month. Not entirely sure what changed as the season went on, why the finances got better. Mostly just that our ground maintenance was a little bit better off. It wasn't costing us quite as much. Well, anyway, now I think is the best time to try. I don't think it's going to succeed, but my determination is so high that I've got a shot. We've got a bit of a balance. I've been here for almost a year now. We're going to try to see if we can improve the training facilities, because not only development of the current group that, oh my gosh, if we're stuck with them for another year, we're in a lot of trouble when they won't develop. But once we get that intake and have some players that can actually get on the pitch and be competitive and maybe be good enough to win the league, regardless of that part, they need to develop, and we need to improve our training facilities. So here's to hoping that this will be enough. I was hoping a positive balance would be what is required, but it's going to take more than that. A level 1 training facility versus a level 3 or 4 training facility, how much is that going to cost, right? Is it 10 grand? Is it 50 grand? I don't know. I don't know how much of an improvement we're actually talking about. Realistically, if you think about it, I would think a level 1 training facility is just an open field with no equipment whatsoever besides a goal at each end. I would predict that a level 2 or level 3 training facility is just having some basic equipment that is a matter of a few $100s in gear. Like, you have pennies for all of your players to train in, or some sort of training jersey, right? You have some cones. You have some dummies to set up a wall and practice free kicks. Those kind of things, right? As you add those elements, you're developing your training facility into eventually something world-class that's going to cost millions to make. But the basics should be the lower levels, and it should be pretty cheap. We got 13 grand. That's not insignificant. I figured we could have gotten a couple levels of growth for 2,000 or 3,000 or 10,000. Not to be. Can't even argue with them to ask for more. By the way, I've been trying for ages, for months, to get an assistant coach and a physio into the squad, and just haven't been able to get anyone to respond. Some of the teams at our level don't even have managers at all, so we're actually a step ahead. It's March, so it was more than a year on, and we have a poor intake. There's no evaluation, but that's because I also have no coach to give me an evaluation. My personal assistant has told me that it's happened, and that's it. There's no info. But when we go into development center, here they are. We do have in intake. We have youth candidates. Oh my goodness, it's happened. Okay, there are 13 players that have come in, potentially enough to completely reshape this squad. Now, they could have terrible ratings, but guaranteed they can't be any worse than what we have, as we have 2 players that have a current ability of 2. It literally doesn't get worse than a current ability of 1. So even if they're terrible, a current ability of 10 or 20 is going to be an improvement from what we had. And it was mostly 15 and 16-year-olds anyway. So we finally have something in place to get us started. I'm super excited for this one, because we're finally going to see something. Something's finally going to take place and get going here for year number 2. You have no idea how excited I am, because I was really nervous that we didn't get a youth intake, but it was just a matter of not having anything reviewed, because I have no staff to give me any sort of feedback. But there was an intake, and that's massive, absolutely massive. Okay, our regular is in the purple. They're in the home colors, and they are going up 1-0 in this one, ahead of the youth intake players. Our regular ones, I think, actually play at a higher level. They performed well in the U19s, but they're not actually our players, and I can't sign any of them to contracts. They were there a year ago. You could foreseeably, sign those on if they're good enough. You can see their stats, and if you like them, you can sign them. However, we have that transfer ban. I was not going to push through with that. We had no U19s. We had a ghost team. This is the ghost team. But it is in the green, and with 7 shot attempts to the other side of their one and only, their .06 XG that they lead 1-0 on. They are getting that possession. It is that same tactic, and where our visiting U19 doesn't exactly have the same tactic. It's slightly different, but that's who we're going to be keeping an eye on this one. That's the team in green and our very first youth intake. I'm so curious to see where they stand. How bad are they? What's their potential like? And can we get anything going as they level the score 1-1 here before halftime? It was a nice ball over the top to Itterdal, and it was nothing compared to what we saw last season. So that's a positive sign. You can see just how much faster the decision making is as they go up 2-1 here. Sorry about that little bit of lag that I'm getting at the moment. I really think my graphics card has taken a nosedive for the worse because I turned down graphical settings quite a bit, and even on games that have very low requirements, it's struggling. So I think I'm going to need to get a replacement as soon as possible, but I've been a little too busy with things going on right now, and it might be a couple weeks before I can get to that. And I'm not even sure if there's stuff available. Last I heard, a month or two ago, things were sold out as Itterdal nearly makes it a third, and you can see the youth candidates are in total domination. Even though they trailed early in this one, it took them a while to draw a level on the score. The possession thing, right? The possession thing's totally there. Itterdal might have been offside, but he's going to get a goal here, and he does make it 3. It took him 2 chances. Keeper saves the first, but he pounces on the rebound. That was actually onside. That was not offside. Quite comfortably onside, actually. It was just well-timed run from Itterdal. And again, totally foreign to anything we saw a year ago with the senior team, who couldn't produce offensively at all. They couldn't put together a pass like this. They couldn't beat a team over the top ever. I don't know if I saw a single highlight in the matches that I did, and we're seeing it numerous times here. Now, the bad news is I'm picking these players up just before the start of the season, which we will be opening up next episode with the new season, with our youth intake firmly in place. And at this point, with 13 of them, a couple being goalkeepers, meaning you've got 11 outfield players to fill 10 positions, they may or may not fill all 10 positions. It very well could happen. Very likely could happen. And then our current ability 1 group, our senior team from this last year, will fill out the bench and be there in an emergency role type situation as that ball goes right on through. Called offside apparently, and that's full time. Whew, okay, I'm excited. Let's just get a brief look at the squad so we know what we have heading into the year. All right, we're going to look just very briefly at 2 important pieces of information just on this screen. So potential ability, current ability. We won't break it down any further than that until next episode. But for now, we can see we have 3 players that are probably good enough, or have the potential to be good enough, to play either League One or in the Championship in England eventually, if they see their full potential. So we're talking about very high quality. We see a whole wide range of players that are more than good enough to see, League One, League Two, maybe push a National League type level. That's solid. We have potential. Okay, we are all the way down. Don't count these 2 of 3 at the bottom, as those are just fillers. They're grayed out. Because we don't have a full U19 squad right now, as they've now been introduced into the U19 squad, replacing all but those last 2 ghosted players. You can see one of them, very, very low potential. You can see really 2 of them low potential, but in terms of current ability, this is the important part, because, again, you have almost nothing in that wide range of ghosted players. But here, we're looking at the worst player, has a current ability of 20. All the way up to a 53. Now, I don't know how the other teams in the league are, but when we had a team full of current ability 1 and 2, we were almost competitive and we were not getting blown out that bad. I'm guessing a lot of the league is probably somewhere around this level, 20s and 30s. I have a feeling that these players coming in with 40s and 50s possibly are going to dominate this level. They're too good for this level already, straight off the bat, coming right out of the youth system. So we will be relying on this group to create, to set up, to start the process for us. I'd say from this 47 and above, those 7 players probably going to be pretty dang good. But I don't know. I don't know how we compare to the other teams. I just know that those 7 players should definitely find a spot in the side, and of course all the way down, because why not? Especially when one of the worst ones is one of those goalkeepers and there is a better option. So there's one guy right to the bench, and then, from there, it's not that hard to find a couple fillers. And many of them have potential. I just don't know how well we can develop until we raise up a couple levels and start to pick up the reputation, hire some coaches on so we can train better, and improve the training facilities so we can train better. So the current ability might be kind of that. They might stall. They might be kind of stuck where they're at for the most part. But guaranteed, with better determination and personality types and things like that, some of them will progress naturally just by playing senior squad games, competitive games that matter. And so I'm so excited for the new season to come. Downside, it's already March, and we are going to start games very soon because the season runs from March to November. So I don't know when our first game is, but it's probably a week or so from now, and none of them have officially signed yet. But once they sign, we'll get them in, and then we have to get them adjusted tactically, and that's going to take a little time. That's the downside here, but I think we should be just about okay, and maybe we can cruise through this season after getting just 5 points last season. Maybe not. We'll see. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I have not mentioned it at all in this one, but I did mention it in both of those last 2 episodes about leaving a like and commenting for the sake of the algorithm. Now, at the time of filming this, episode 1 has come out, and my oh my, what a wonderful response. Thank you so much, because the click rate for likes not only is 100% like versus dislike, but probably half of you watching the video, and I've never seen any video that I've ever watched or any video that I have ever done on this channel. I've never seen a video with half of the people watching clicking the like button. I've seen some crazy high rates out there, but not like that. And so thank you one more time here with episode number 3. After that, it's totally up to you whether you like, or dislike for that matter, a video. But this is what gets the algorithm going, and I really appreciate it, and quite a few comments to go with it. I'm Decathlon Gamer. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.